Okay, you can begin.
Okay, so good morning, sir and fellow students. Today, my colleague Anissa Hemraj and myself, Diana Sivarat, will be presenting on Chapter 7, Interacting in Teams and Groups. So, the chapter objectives this presentation will explore the following areas: understanding groups, group development, dynamics in groups, group norms, creative conflict, group decision making, teamwork, team learning, and establishing a team. So, first, what is a group? A group is considered to be three or more people interacting and communicating interpersonally over time in order to reach a goal, according to Cathcart, Samovar, and Henman 1996. So the first heading is understanding groups. There are two main types of groups, the first one being highly structured. In this type of group, there are clear roles and processes, and an example is a class. So in a class, the leader would be the lecturer, and the group members would be the students. And as we all know, we have to follow certain rules and processes in a group in classroom setting. And the second type is the loosely structured or informal group. And these are formed spontaneously and no written rules or procedures are present. And an example is a discussion at a school table with friends. So there are different dimensions to how groups are structured and each has implications for the leadership dynamics in that group. The three key dimensions that help us understand different types of groups are: number one, purposes. So, groups exist for different purposes, and the purpose of a group should lead to the structures and processes needed to help the people in the group accomplish their purposes. They range from friendship support groups to highly focused task groups to groups like a staff that delivers a service or product over time. The second dimension is structure, and structure relates to mechanisms for how the people in the group relate to each other. And some groups are highly structured with hierarchical roles or positions, and others are undefined and evolve. So, there are different types of leadership roles in groups, and I made this table briefly describing it. And the first is decentralized groups. So, these groups are leaderless, and it's a group of people who get together to do something, but no one is the formal leader. So, an example is an in class activity, and these usually last for 10 to 15 minutes, and the lecturer would usually tell you to just brainstorm ideas to contribute to the wider in class discussion. So, within that group, no one takes the leadership role because each of you have to just come and brainstorm ideas. The second type is formal groups, and these are highly structured groups with a person in the position as the formal leader. And the positional leader may be accountable but may use diverse leadership styles, as we learned last week, such as conventional, pluralistic, and relational. An example is the president or director of a group. So, informal group, these are participants share needed roles, and leadership emerges or is all around the group. Even in hierarchical organizations, there are informal leaders who influence the group or decision making processes because of their seniority, past stature in the organization, or their personalities. So, for example, as many of us, when we graduate, will obviously have a bachelor's degree or associate degree. And sometimes in an organization, they prefer to take decision advice from senior members of the staff because they probably have more experience than us, even though we have better qualifications than them. The third dimension is time, and this relates to groups existing over varying lengths of time. So the first one is time limited groups. They must quickly establish purposes and engage members in short time. They meet once to discuss a specific issue or they complete a task in a specified number of meetings. And they are often called a task force or ad hoc committee. And an ad hoc committee is formed for a specific purpose, serves as a temporary committee to help a particular project. So, for example, in secondary school, when you heard certain teachers were part of the committee to organize sports day or bazaar, and that would just last for until the event is finished. So the second type is a specified amount of extended time, and members may have a specified term of appointment, An example is like a club president, such as in Scrabble, or in secondary school again, there was house captain, vice captain, treasurer, and secretary, who would be the captains and the members of the board for a particular house for just for the year. So the third type is ongoing group, and this uses names such as committee, board, or council. They keep the group focused on its purposes. They must deal with member motivation over time and establish processes to welcome and bring new members into the group. The duration of the group raises different challenges, and an example are staff, members, or family. So the second heading is group development. And there's one challenge to leadership is to attend to the process of group development in order to facilitate the most involvement of the most members in the most effective way to make the best decisions. So according to Tuckman 1965, there are 5 stages to group development. The first stage is forming. This is the group's initial stage of coming together. It includes tasks such as member recruitment and affiliation. And according to Graffin 2018, strategies for this phase are taking the lead, providing clear expectations and consistent instructions, and quick response times, and team building initially occurs and trust is established during this stage. In terms of relational leadership, it is inclusive and empowering, ensure all members are involved, and model the processes of inclusion and shared leadership. The second stage is storming, and this is the stage in which groups start to get in gear. Differences of opinions begin to emerge, and if the group is not clear about its purposes and goals, or if the group can't agree on shared goals, it may collapse at this stage. Individuals engage in self assertion to get their needs recognized and addressed in this stage, and it can be a short process where the group comes to a clear direction or can be destructive. According to Graffin 2018, traits of this stage are resistance, lack of participation, and conflict, and strategies are normalizing matters and encouraging leadership. In terms of relational leadership, it creates a climate in which each person matters. They are ethical and open. They need to be patient and to give divergent views a full hearing and handle conflict directly and openly. The third stage is norming, and once the group resolves key differences, it establishes patterns of how it gets work done. Formal or informal procedures for which things come to the whole group are set up, and reports needed are identified. Who is involved in what and how people interact are highlighted, and members of the group begin to understand the group's culture. According to Graffin 2018, features of this stage are reconciliation, relief, engage and supportive members, and developing cohesion. Strategies are recognizing individual and group efforts, providing learning opportunities and feedback. And in terms of relational leadership, it needs to be fair with processes and keep members welcomed, informed, and involved. The fourth stage is performing, and according to Abudi 2010, now that a group has established group norms and resolved most interpersonal issues, the focus of the group shifts to its tasks. Members are motivated to work together as a cohesive group and they find ways to solve lingering or new disagreements. According to Graffin 2018, characteristics of this stage are interdependence, healthy system, ability to effectively produce as a team, and balance of task and process orientation. Strategies are celebrating minimal intervention and encouraging group decision making and problem solving. In terms of relational leadership, it empowers members to learn new skills and share roles. The fifth and final stage is adjourning. Tuckman and Jensen 1977 amended their stage model to accommodate the closure stages that groups experience. This is a different stage to enter as it marks a period of closure and finality according to Smith 2005. And it should include a celebration and recognition of the group's accomplishments, also a reflection of the lessons learned about what was effective and ineffective. So the next topic is dynamics in groups. So before I play the video, a brief description of what group dynamics is. It is the study of the group's life according to Johnson and Johnson 1994. It includes processes such as how the group makes decisions, how the group handles conflicts, and how the group meets its leadership needs. So this video highlighted different things important in dynamics in groups, and it was very useful. Okay, so the next topic is group roles, and we have a video, but we'll play this after. Um, you could go back to the slide with the video. No, with the group roles one. Sorry, my Wi-Fi stopped working and
Noah
the
is sitting in a team
meeting
meeting
stopped.
regarding
If
a
you
new
could just stop
process.
this video
He wants to ask.
and go back to the slide with the group rules. I had to leave the meeting. Right, you can go to the right. Thanks. So group roles. Individuals engage in communication patterns that may signal roles in the group. Group building roles are actions that focus on the group as people, including the relationships among members, and task roles focus on accomplishing the group's purposes, such as giving information and opinions or using various decision making processes to ensure the group works. So, in group building rules, according to Ben and Sheets 1947, these rules are oriented toward the functioning of the group as a group, and they alter or maintain the group's way of working to strengthen and regulate the group. And so there are different roles in a group in group building. So there are four here, and the first one is gatekeeper. This invites those who have not yet spoken, who have been trying to say something into the conversation. Encourager welcomes all individuals and diverse ideas and responds warmly to promote the inclusion and empowerment of others. Mediator harmonizes conflict and seeks to straighten out opposing points of view in a clear way. The follower is an active listener who willingly supports the group's actions and decisions. The task roles in a group. So there's the information seeker, and this person is aware that the group needs more facts or data before proceeding. The opinion seeker is aware that the group needs more insight, ideas, or opinions before proceeding. The opinion giver sharing one's views, feelings, or ideas so the group has the benefit of one's thinking. The summarizer condensing the nature of the discussion in a capsule format for clarity. And the clarifier is the person who is explaining the ideas in new words to add meaning. So in the group rules, there are those past two were positive, but there's a negative role that can be played as well. So individual dysfunctional roles are when these may truly hamper a group's goals, purposes, and progress. According to Ben and Sheets 1947, two examples of these roles are number one, special interest pleader. This person always has a secondary agenda within a group and pleads on behalf of a specific group, example like a gender or race. If they want to make a problem in the group, they would bring up these very tender topics that people usually never really like to talk about, and they would always make an issue about it. And they usually conceal in their own biases in the stereotype which best fits their individual need. So if they have an ulterior motive for the group, if they just wanted to fail, they would always bring up like negative aspects of the group and make people divide into the group. The second type is the blocker, and this person always hates or rejects everything the group recommends and often a giant stumbling block for groups. So this person is always very active in a group. In most groups that you are in, there must be someone who, even if it's slightly, they would take on this role. So the next topic is group norms, and the video could be played now.
Noah is sitting in a team meeting regarding a new process. He wants to ask what the end goal is, but he's afraid because the rest of the team seems to be in agreement about the new process. Tasha is also sitting in the meeting with the same questions and concerns, but doesn't want to risk looking like she's going against the team. Kate, who is leading the meeting, is wondering why no one on her team is asking questions, but moves forward with the new way of doing things. Later that day at lunch, Noah and Tasha complain to each other about the new process. Does this sound familiar? Instead of speaking up within the large group, Noah and Tasha had a meeting after the meeting. This happened because they don't feel the team is a safe place to share their true thoughts, a common problem called low psychological safety. So how can supervisors create psychological safety? Set the stage by establishing norms and expectations. First, make it clear that everyone's input matters, and it's expected that they speak up and actively listen to each other. Then model your own curiosity by asking open-ended questions. Next time Kate could ask her team, what concerns do you have? What can we do differently? How can this be better? This fosters learning and invites feedback. It's also beneficial to acknowledge that as a supervisor, you make mistakes too. Tell them you might miss something and that they need to speak up and make you aware. This will put people at ease to talk about their mistakes more openly and admit when they don't know something. Keep in mind that any behavior that undermines psychological safety, such as dominating a discussion, should be addressed right away. Otherwise, this can shut other people down or sidetrack team productivity. Psychological safety also affects team decision-making. Without it, team members may not raise critical questions, concerns, or objections to the perceived agreement. This can result in poor decisions that could have been avoided had people spoken up. Another common mistake is to spend a lot of time and energy trying to gain a consensus when it's not needed. When everyone is clear about their role in decision-making and agree on how much time and energy should be devoted to each decision, it avoids conflict and wasted effort and improves team performance. Establishing norms and expectations that foster psychological safety and ensuring clear decision-making processes are critical steps that you can take to lead teams more effectively to help them realize their true potential.
Okay, so in terms of group norms, these are rules or guidelines that reflect expectations of how group members should act and interact. They define what behaviors are acceptable or not according to O'Hare and Wayman 2004. This acts as a group's personality and contributing to the group's climate. So if no one feels welcomed in a group or if they feel like they can't say something without being judged, this would cause a negative group climate and they wouldn't feel welcomed in the group. And so this would be a negative part in the group. It relates to how people look, behave, or communicate with each other, or how a group acts. Example, how often they meet. If a group has a task to do and they only meet once per month, this task would not be successful because no one really knows each other in the group. They would be like, even though they are strangers, they should have a relationship and have a proper family like feeling in the group. And without this, they wouldn't be a successful group. By defining what social behavior lies within acceptable boundaries, norms can help a group function smoothly and face conflict without falling apart, according to Hayes 2004. So, I have two questions here to ask in the next slide. And the first one is, how many of you had a group conflict resulting in enmity? It could be outside of Costat or in Costat, but you had a group conflict and it just did not end good.
There's all a chance, always complain about groups.
Yeah.
I I could say in terms of work, um, lots of disagreements and somebody would leave the group and stuff like that. And we would have certain rules to do certain things, and they would want to relieve themselves of the rule itself.
Yeah, that's so true. I had a time, it was last year, and someone didn't even put a full stop into the document up to now. And she collected her A and then went on to the lecturer that how we made her feel uncomfortable. And then when we confronted her, she said that we were supposed to ask her why she wasn't putting any work. And that just caused a major conflict, and she ended up leaving the group. And it just created a very negative environment in the group even after she left because we all had to stay in the same class after and it was just very awkward and it was just a negative experience altogether. That was the only time I experienced enmity on my part at least because she just made us look like we did her something when she was the one who wasn't doing anything in the group. Anyone else has an experience?
I actually do. Um, School wise, no one was willing to get along in the group, and they did collect it at 91 because of me, because no one was willing to come together and do anything. I had to save the group and do the project, and the teacher knew that, but he still
Yes.
gave them the 91.
Yeah, the same thing
So
happened and yeah.
yeah.
Now, that's not how groups supposed to work, even from a lecturer standpoint. Just letting you all know. Um, how many of you all in your group activities utilize peer evaluation?
Only one or two courses in my whole 4 years at Custard I had to do that.
Oh, okay. And that is supposed to be integral part as to how to manage um, group work. And far too often, lecturers tend to leave groups alone and don't get involved. And that, especially if there are problems or issues, they take a hands-off approach, saying, you all are big people, you all can sort it out. This is tertiary level education, but I mean, even at work, people have massive issues with group activities, like what Kennedy was talking about. And to take that hands-off approach is actually quite what's the word I want to use? It's disingenuous because part of the responsibility of the lecturer is to assist students managing and developing group group conflict and group norming skills. So unfortunately, not all lecturers are supposed to work the way they ought to. And as a result of that, because of poor management of group activities, students have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to this aspect of school life. It's unfortunate though because a well managed group activity will allow for greater levels of meaningful learning than just simply attending a class and listening to a lecturer or doing assignment, because the socialization aspect of the group is um, is a greater teacher than even the teacher themselves, the lecturer themselves. So, have you had? Let me just ask a question related to your first question here.
Yeah.
Have any of you all have very good experiences with groups, and what was the difference with the way that group worked as opposed to groups that didn't work well?
Good
I
afternoon, morning,
Hi,
sir.
Mr.
Hi.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
yes, all right. So usually when we have the opportunity to choose, we choose. I personally choose people that I am comfortable with, that think um, along the same line, because I'm looking at the type A and the type B here. And to me personally, I may not fall into one. I am taking things from either side, because yes, I am achievement oriented and time conscious, but I don't think we have difficulty. I don't have difficulty relaxing. I just know we decide what we have to do, and so we get together, and I try to work with, I guess, people that I'm familiar with, because I know we think along the same line. When I'm
Okay,
placing a group with people that I don't know, I kind of, you feel them out based on how they behave in class, based on what they're saying at the group meetings, and I just decide from up front, okay, this looks like it may be a little bit more work because we're not all on the same page. But either way, I want to get a really good grade, so I put in the work that is required, even though it means sometimes you're carrying the load then. Just like the person who spoke before said, you carry the load. But usually, as I said, we get to choose now. And by this time, 4 years in, we're working with people that we're familiar with. I did see, though, one course that I did, the lecturer actually utilized the peer evaluations. When I say utilized it, he marked, it was a group assignment, but everybody didn't get the same grade. He
correct. Yes.
marked based on how much work you put
What you
in.
did. Yeah.
Yes, which I found was really, really good, because to me, usually everybody else is do peer evaluation, and sometimes it's like everybody still gets the same grade, even though we didn't put in the same amount of work. But usually I end up in really good groups, like I am in this class, and it's usually good. It's usually good.
All right, but what about the I think Cheryl, Miss Fraser, you wanted to say something, or was it Miss Riley?
So it was pretty much along the line of what Lana Maria would have contributed, in that at this stage we're often given the opportunity to select our group, and I gravitate to persons that I've worked with previously. I know their work ethic. I know they have the same ambition towards a really good grade, and we kind of start off on a good foot. When I'm in a place where it's a new group, as the person would have mentioned before, we kind of really take that time to feel them out, see if we kind of on the same page, if we have common goals, etc. So that
Mhm.
was really what I was going to add to the conclusion.
Thank you. That actually is quite true. But when you do find yourself in quarters, knowing the process that groups need to take is also going to be an important element to be able to navigate your way through new groups. The norming and storming in particular, or storming and norming, I should say, are some of the most critical stages of trying to come to grips with new people in your group. So it's something that I think lecturers ought to be aware of in terms of the way in which the group dynamics work and group development works. And that is something that I would encourage. Um, well, I would encourage my colleagues to get to understand a little more about group activities, and they need to be more hands-on in their management of it. All right, but I like the direction you took here. Let's see what you're going to be doing with the rest of it, Miss Sibarat. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, yeah. So the second question is, what is your personality type? Type A or B? I believe there's a type C as well, but just for this purpose, we'll be saying type A or B. The type A are highly competitive, achievement oriented, time conscious, have difficulty relaxing, multitaskers, and deadline driven. This is pertaining to your work ethic. So, for example, like myself, I'm a true type A person. If I get an assignment, I wouldn't stop thinking about it until I finish it. So, I basically do it the same week I get it, or even the next day. And the type B are patient, relaxed, easygoing, very social. They procrastinate a little more and they are reflective. So it pertains to your work ethic. If you can do an assignment like gradually, like piece by piece, that's what it means. So I have a little fun BuzzFeed quiz that you would find out type A or type B. It will take like 1 or 2 minutes, and it's the quiz party. So each of us have to type in our names, and when you finish it, the results everybody could see. But I wouldn't want you to do it now because I want you to pay attention to the presentation. So maybe after, if you get a chance, you could do it, and we could all see which type A or type B person we have. But if any of you could answer that you know already, if you are type A or type B, that would be good, and say why you think you are that person. Or you don't know if you never found out this already. Or you could do the Big Five personality test, or the and that one is very in depth and it pertains to your work ethic, and it's really good as well. So any of you know if you're type A or type B?
When I do the quiz, to be honest, I always get type A, but I don't think I'm actually a full type A because I don't necessarily just, while I'm very achievement oriented, I'm not that time conscious. I kind of take my time and really build my work to a level that I'm kind of like happy with or contented with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I really kind of merge or might have to take a look at what the type C personality really is.
I think the type C is just a combination of type A and type B, where you're
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, it's just merging the two together.
Right. So when you're looking at type B, it's more like a spectrum that you're looking at,
Yeah.
and it's how far along the spectrum you are between A and B. So if you consider A one pole is one position on the right and the other part, type B on the left, it's where you are in that spectrum. So as Miss Belgrove is saying, she thinks she's more A, which means if there was a middle point, then you're more prone to the A. But interestingly, Miss Belgrove, that's something that an A-type personality tends to say about themselves.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So I messaged the link to the quiz on
The-
WhatsApp in the group, so you could do it if you have any
Fantastic.
free time.
Yeah, fantastic. That way people can get it quickly and try it on
Yeah,
their own.
it's just like a silly thing. It's nothing serious, but it's
Actually,
just
no,
like a fun.
some of those tests may look silly, but they're actually well designed
Yeah,
psychological testing. Um, you just have to be honest with your responses. That's the main thing. If you're honest with responses, then the instrument works properly. But if you don't take it and you know you fudge the questions, then or the answers I should say, and you're not going to get an honest feedback,
the yeah.
which is really bad because it means you're lying to yourself. So why? All right, pick it up from there.
Right. So my last topic is creative conflict, and this relates to unresolved conflict at any stage can create a group climate that is tense and hostile. It can also be an effective method for improving the group's outcomes, and it can result from clashes in personality, role conflict, or controversy, such as conflict in ideas. And unfortunately, most people choose to ignore conflict. So if someone in a group, like in a group chat, they say something negative to one of your ideas, or if they're being like sarcastic towards you, some people could be able to ignore that and just carry on with their work. Unlike me, I would prefer to answer them. So I'm more prone to being in conflict in a group because I need to be able to ignore the conflict a little bit more. And according to the reciprocal and relational models of leadership, it can be known that some conflict is natural and inevitable. In most groups that you will be in your life, there will be conflict, either small or big. It might not include you, but other members in the group could be part of the conflict. So, surprisingly, there's advantages in conflict, and these are the next slide. So, the first one is it can increase motivation and energy. It clarifies issues and positions. It can increase self awareness because if you say that you are the one making the conflict, you could learn from it and you can become like a better group member. And it can lead to a new combination of ideas or methods. Disadvantages, however, are they can distract from goal achievement, can weaken the group, often becomes a negatively reinforcing cycle. So, like in a group, if the conflict is resolved, then most times the two people or three people that's involved in a conflict, they try their best to put their feelings aside, but most times deep down they still have the feelings, so they would always be negative towards each other. And this would just be a reinforcing cycle, and it tends to escalate and more issues arise. So that's my part, and now Anissa will be presenting on group decision making.
So group decision making. Can you guys hear me? Can somebody just confirm?
We're hearing you. I'm
Okay,
hearing
thank
you.
you. So group decision making. Traditionally, a group or organization has a formal leader with the authority and responsibility for making final decisions. So some possible reasons for this are time constraints. The leader may be representing the group, or the leader may judge that the decision is not a major one and not worth the group time and energy. So when making a decision, a leader should ask themselves the following questions. Does this decision support our vision and mission? What opinions do my group members have about this issue? Will this decision heighten our involvement or limit involvement? Is this the right thing to do? Is it principled? And should I slow down making this decision so that others can get involved? So participative leadership. Participative leadership is encouraged in formal organizations with positional leaders to allow for external influences over a leader's decisions. So when this approach is taken, it was noticed that a better decision is made and it receives a greater acceptance. Participative leadership can lead to group members being empowered, learning more effective leadership skills, and sustaining a higher commitment to the process when others are involved. In the definition of participative leadership, allow correctly identifies who has the responsibility and who can involve or not involve others. This is a conventional way for leaders to look at scenarios. How others should be involved rather than whether they should be involved should be the question asked. In a formal settings often have a lot of tension about the authority and role of participants in the decision-making process, as people feel entitled to a role in decision-making. An example of this would be when COSTAT was trying to decide if online classes were the best way to go. They would have sent out a questionnaire for us to fill out, for us to have an input. Not sure how many people actually saw that. So Yoke identifies a continuum of 4 possible decision-making procedures. They range in the amount of influences others have on the decision. So it starts from autocratic, goes to consultation, joint decision, and delegation or participation. Johnson & Johnson describes 5 methods of decision-making. Decision by authority without discussion, expert member, average member's opinion, decision by authority after discussion, and majority control. Some decisions are best made by a leader. However, most groups would benefit by making decisions democratically. Making decisions in this way allows for input from all members without domination of the leader. The group can assess all options together in a creative environment. The group comes to a final decision as a whole and implements the course of action with guidance from the leader. Challenges Challenges facing this type of leadership include a desire for control and conflicting viewpoints. The group must generally go with an overall consensus, which can lead to detachment of conflicted group members who feel that their input was not taken into consideration. And I think everybody would have felt like this at some point in time. Consensus does not mean that every single decision is made by the entire group, nor does it mean that a majority vote equals reaching consensus. An important task for teams is to make decisions, and it's the norm to want to reach a consensus on critical issues. This process can be a time-consuming one. Reina provides the following definition of consensus. Consensus does not mean that everyone on the team thinks the best possible decision has been reached. It does mean that no one is professionally violated by the decision and that all team members will support its implementation. Reina suggests the following guidelines for reaching consensus within a team. So 1, clearly define the issue facing the team. 2, focus on similarities between positions. 3, ensure that there is adequate time for discussion. And 4, avoid conflict-reducing tendencies, example, voting. Consensus encourages the highest dedication among members and requires that the group become comfortable with handling conflict and be aware of rising disputes that can lead to a favorable decision. Groups that are uncomfortable with controversy may move prematurely to vote just to get the group to move on. Consensus calls for the use of strategies like active listening, compromising, and teamwork, encouraging varying viewpoints. Listening for understanding and disagreeing with courtesy are important hallmarks for the consensus building process. When groups fail to obtain consensus, it is normally due to inadequate time being allotted for discussions of perspectives and opinions to discover common ground or because of mismanaged conflicts. Mutual respect and the trust are vital components to successfully achieving a decision by consensus. So teamwork. Teams and groups. Teams are more than just a group of people working together. According to Cotter and Cohen, a powerful group has 2 characteristics. It is made up of the right people and it demonstrates teamwork. Hughes, Ginnett, and Curfey differentiated between groups and teams, noting that although both have the characteristics of mutual interaction and reciprocal influence, teams have a stronger sense of identity and common goals. In addition, task interdependency is higher within a team than in a group, and team members generally have more distinctive responsibilities than group members. According to Quinn, a team is defined as an enthusiastic set of competent people who have clearly defined roles associated in a common activity, working cohesively in their trusting relationships, and exercising personal discipline and making individual sacrifices for the good of the team. So here in this table, we will be comparing working groups and teams. So 1, a strong, clearly focused leader is appointed versus shared leadership responsibilities exist among members. 2, a general organizational mission is the group's purpose versus a specific well-defined purpose that is unique to the team. 3, individual work provides the only products versus team and individual work develop products. 4, effectiveness is measured indirectly by a group's influence on others versus effectiveness is measured directly by assessing teamwork products. 5, individual accountability is evident versus both team and individual accountability are evident. 6, individual accomplishments are recognized and rewarded versus team celebrations. Individual efforts that contribute to the team success are also recognized and celebrated. 7, meetings are effectively run and last for short periods of time versus meetings have open-ended discussions and include active problem solving. And finally, in meetings, members discuss, decide, and delegate versus in meetings, members discuss, decide, and do real work together. Parker defines team as a group of people with a high degree of interdependence geared towards the achievement of a goal or completion of a task. So there are three common types of teams. The first one is a functional team, which tends to resemble a hierarchic organization in which power and authority are contained at the top. The second one is self-directed, where members possess all the technical knowledge and skills to achieve a goal with a certain degree of power delegated to it from a leader. And the third one is cross-functional, where individuals possess a variety of skill sets, departments, or areas that combine skill sets that no one individual would possess. Teams must have clear goals to achieve success. Often, teams either do not take the time to formulate goals or set goals that are unclear and unattainable. So, to achieve this, there's something called a SMART rubric, which provides a framework for teams to use as they establish their goals. So, this is the acronym. So, the S in SMART is for specific. So you must know exactly what you want to accomplish. Measurable, how will you know that you've met your goal? Achievable, make sure your goal is not too far off to reach, but far enough to be challenging. Relevant, link the goal to something important to you, something that inspires you. And timely, when do you want your goal to be met?
Okay, can I, before you
Yeah,
go,
go back.
I just wanted to go back to the, so recent developments in defining the nature of goals and objectives has added two more letters to that, an acronym that you're using there, and it becomes from smart to smarter. And so you have an E and an R. The E means that you have to be ethical in the development of your goals and objectives, as well as being environmentally conscious. So the two elements to the E there. And R refers to resourced, so that what's happening is that yes, you have goals and objectives, but if you don't have the resources, then you don't have um, the necessary tools to be able to accomplish those things. So it's all well and good to have smart goals, but they need to be smarter. All right. So that's some recent developments from management studies and goal objectives. If you do strategic management, for those of you who are management students, you will come across that smarter element in strategic planning. All right. Or you can continue. Go ahead.
So an example of SMART is a business responding to emails, DMs, WhatsApp messages, etc. about a sale that they're having within 24 hours. Teams are more than a combination of skill sets or functional roles carried out by individual members. Teams are a blend of people with diverse backgrounds, histories, styles, talents, and personalities. So question. There are three common types of teams that I mentioned before. What are they? Anybody? Hello?
But the answer is
Is it B?
Yes,
Is the answer B?
yes, thank you.
Welcome.
The following are some factors that are critical for team success. Bending the rules in an effort to arrive to the best solution. Be sensitive and responsive to the concerns and considerations of other team members in the design of projects. Understand that common goals and targets are mandatory for all team members. Provide open and frequent risk-free communications. All team members must pull their own weight. Share a common objective and sense of trust and capitalize on team members' strengths. Be open-minded, even if it means modifying the established process, and use a bit of humor when discussions get tense and the pressure to complete a task is high. So, team learning. So the traditional way of learning would be individual learning, but this can also occur in group projects and in study groups. So team learning happens in dialogue with each other and throughout reflection on shared experiences. Dialogue is far more than a mere words used to share meaning. It includes a tone of voice, laughter, pauses, difficulty in finding the right words, and amount of discussions needed to come to some meaning. When a team is in dialogue, participants are aware of the process of their communication as well as its content. So dialogue and discussion are two slightly different processes. Some groups mistakenly engage in discussion, sharing their own views with minimal attempts at true understanding, possibly leading to debate and conflict. Groups that value learning together will establish true dialogue methods and goals of which are to learn together and clarify points while engaging in change. In a productive work community, leaders are not commanders and controllers, bosses and big shots. They are servers and supporters, partners and providers. Leaders in teamwork settings are also facilitators of team learning. Facilitating team learning requires individual participants to understand that their motivations to advocate for their own interests while being open to hearing other points of view and to find a common ground. Team performance and team development are two critical functions of leadership. Team performance means accomplishing the group's goals, making decisions and plans, achieving results, and solving problems. Team development includes establishing effective relationships, creating an environment in which individuals feel valued, and facilitating cohesion within a team. Research conducted on teams show that productivity, innovation, creativity, decision-making, quality, problem-solving, and the use of resources are all increased as a result of people working in team structures. While balancing ongoing activities, leaders also face both internal and external demands such as monitoring, taking action, and paying attention to internal and external group issues. In experienced groups, they can allow team members to act in this role. This is a delicate balancing act of determining which problems to intervene in and which to let team members resolve as a whole, which I think is an approach some lecturers would take when groups have problems.
Yes, that is.
So question, fill in the blank, which goes where? This is my last question, okay? Somebody? Anybody?
Is the
I
first
given a bonus
one
mark to the person who's answering this question.
is the first one team performance?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, then the next one has to be team development.
That's an extra too. Thank you.
All right, no bonus to you. That was guessing. That wasn't answering.
So characteristics of team leadership. 1. Clear elevating goal. The group believes the goal is worthwhile and is transparent. 2. Result-driven structure. The group's purpose needs to drive the structure of the team. 3. Competent team members. The group possesses appropriate technical knowledge and interpersonal skills to work collaboratively as a team. 4. Unified commitment. The group has a sense of identity and level of team spirit that has been intentionally facilitated and developed. 5. Collaborative climate. All individuals contribute collectively to the success of the project, and individual accomplishments are integrated into the whole team's effort. 6. Standards of excellence. These are established and clearly understood by the team with the emphasis on everyone performing at the highest levels. 7, principal leadership. The leader establishes priorities and helps team members stay focused on the goals, sustains collaborative environments for the team, and manages performance. 8, external support. The team is provided with resources to accomplish its goals and given recognition for its success. Team leaders are tasked with monitoring the group's progress and relationships and taking action when appropriate. Leaders are often called upon to take action when the group is stuck and unable to move forward, or when internal conflict takes place that the team itself cannot resolve. It may require the leader to mediate conflict, assist the group in focusing its goals, or coach the group on interpersonal skills, which I believe happens when we're put in groups and we have group conflicts. The leader would be the lecturer that we go to. Establishing a team. Establishing a team at the beginning before initiating the work to be accomplished is important. Based on research findings from effective teamwork, Hughes, Guinness, and Curfew provide 4 design components needed to establish teams. They are important at the beginning stages of team development to allow the team to work effectively and efficiently. So what? Task structure. The team understands its tasks and is given the freedom to accomplish the task. 2, group boundaries. The size of the team is adequate, diversity exists, and there is sufficient knowledge, information, and interpersonal skills to accomplish the goals harmoniously. 3, norms. The team has a set of norms to guide the behaviors of the team members. And 4, authority should be flexible rather than strict, allow team members to openly debate and instill a sense of empowerment and trust, as well as a degree of command when compliance by the group members is warranted. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. We're just going to do a chapter summary. So Diana will take over from here.
So for my part, the summary is: a group is 3 or more people interacting, working to achieve the same goals. 3 dimensions of groups are purposes, structure, and time. 3 types of leadership roles in groups are decentralized, formal, and informal groups. Tuckman, 1965. 5 stages of group development are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Group dynamics relate to the group's life. 3 types of roles in a group are classified as group building, task, and individual dysfunctional. Group norms are rules that reflect expectations of how group members should act and interact, and creative conflict has both advantages and disadvantages.
Participative leadership allows for external influences over a leader's decision. Consensus means that no one is professionally violated by the decision and that all team members will support its implementation. A team is a group of people with a high degree of interdependency geared towards the achievement of a goal or completing a task. The 3 types of teams are functional, self-directed, and cross-functional. Team performance and team development are 2 critical functions of leadership. Establishing a team at the beginning before initiating the work to be accomplished is important, and 4 design components needed to establish a team are tasks, structure, group, boundaries, norms, and authority. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
All
Well,
right, so
thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Sabrina says well done. Guys, um, one of the things that I'll ask you to do is based upon this presentation, even if you don't want to do it here, you need to spend some time reflecting on your past experiences with groups and taking this information and trying to evaluate what can you do better in terms of the next group activity that you get involved with and how you can put in practice some of the things that you may have learned today. Some of you may be familiar with this stuff already, but being familiar and putting it into practice is the challenge in all cases here. Um, if you find yourself in leadership roles within groups, remember there's a lot of responsibility sitting on you. But because that responsibility sits on you, it does not mean that you unilaterally simply do all your work yourself. That is not the purpose of being involved in groups. So, does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask? All right. If not, then I'll pause the recording. Good job, ladies.
Thanks, sir.